Welcome everyone to another video in our series that explores sample records management configurations in M-Files with AutoRecords. As with all of our samples, the details of this configuration are available in the online documentation for AutoRecords. Working samples using these configurations are also available in a sample vault which you can download from TeamIM and begin experimenting with today. All of our sample videos and documentation assume you're familiar with records management concepts, the M-Files user interface, and that you have a basic understanding of AutoRecords. In this session, we're going to see how to set up a configuration where we want to have someone approve a budget document for deletion prior to having AutoRecords delete that document. We'll be setting up budgets to be approved for deletion 1 year after it has been archived. Once approved, AutoRecords will delete the budget. We'll walk through all the steps in this configuration as if nothing has been previously set up on the system. We'll start by creating a new policy object in M-Files. First, we need to give the policy a name. Policy name should be consistent, so when we're reviewing all of the policies on the system, the list is fairly well organized. It's worth considering whether we want the policy names to include a description of the retention or just the documents that are included in the policy. Generally, we recommend that the policy name reflects the types of documents contained in the policy, since including retention at this level can get a bit unwieldy. Using this example, we may want the name to be Financial Documents-Budgets, since it will handle financial documents that have a document type of budget. The next thing we'll do is select the document class or classes that belong in this policy. In this case, it's just the financial document class. However, since there are many types of financial documents, we need to add a trigger to limit the policy to specific types of financial documents. Only documents which match the criteria in the trigger will be included in the policy. In this case, we want to set up a property trigger, with the triggered property set to document type. The document type property is used by the financial document class in our example to separate various types of financial documents. Next, we'll set the comparator to equal to and the value to budget. Importantly, document type is a select list, so behind the scenes, M-Files assigns an ID to each possible value. So our comparison cannot be to a text value of budget, it must be to the ID assigned to that value. In order to do this comparison against the proper ID, we must manually add the property document type to the trigger property metadata card and select the value we want to use for comparison. With that, our trigger is set up, so only financial documents with a document type equal to budget will be included in this policy. Finally, we need to add a policy owner. In this example, we want someone to be assigned to approve the budget document for deletion 1 year after it's archived. We're going to assign those budgets to the policy owner for approval, so we must select the policy owner here. With the policy owner set, we can begin to set up the retention category. The retention category gets assigned to all documents that qualify for the policy and schedules an event or events to perform retention actions against those documents. In this case, there will be just 2 events that get scheduled, and we'll look at those in just a minute. For now, let's take a closer look at the retention category. We have a few bits of information to provide. Starting at the top, the ID is a number that you assign to uniquely identify the retention category. Many records management standards require that each retention category have a unique numeric ID. As you build out your file plan, you may want to use this ID to group retention categories together. While in most cases, retention categories are generally not specific to a certain type of document and can be reused by multiple types of documents, in this case, we're setting up retention that is intended only for budgets, since the deletion requires approval. The retention category label is a free-form text field. As a best practice, this field should describe the events that will be scheduled for this retention category. Since we have multiple events that can be scheduled by this retention category, the name is set up to indicate both the approve and delete events that will be scheduled. Once the label has been set, the retention category name is automatically set as a combination of ID and label. The only other property we need to set for this example is to assign the event group templates that will be used to schedule events for budget documents. That leads us to the next step of setting up those event group templates. The event group template is a configuration that controls how AutoRecords will treat documents that are part of this retention category. All event group templates follow a simple pattern of after some triggering criteria has been met, wait some period of time, and then perform some action. For this event group template, we will have a trigger based on the property record status. Looking at the trigger, the property is record status. Record status is a property that we've added to the budgets, so records management will not need to rely on workflow statuses. As a general rule, when setting up retention, we should try to not drive retention from workflow states simply because retention is measured in many years, whereas workflows related to documents are often quite short-lived. In this case, budgets will likely have a workflow that includes an approval and then some changes over the duration of the budget, which is often around 1 year. Finally, at the end of the budget workflow, one workflow state may indicate that it's time to archive the budget, and this will set the record status to archive for records management to use. Archiving the budget will begin the retention. So given that information, with this trigger, we are comparing to see if the record status is equal to an archived budget. Importantly, the record status property is a select list, so behind the scenes, mFiles maintains a list of values where each option is assigned an ID. Because of that, we can't compare it to a text value of the archive budget. So we must add the property record status to the trigger metadata card and select the archive budget value so we can compare to the ID associated to that value. The trigger value we typed in is not used for comparison when we use select list properties. It's only used to create the trigger name. The next property we have to set is the period. Recalling that our goal is to have someone approve this document 1 year after it's archived, we're going to set up our period so the time units are years and the duration is 1. The final thing we need to do is create an assignment for the policy owner so they know to approve the deletion of the budget. To accomplish that, we'll use the action template of Assign to Policy Owner. This will create an mFiles assignment object in the system linked to the document that needs to be reviewed. Our assumption here is that the policy owner is trained on this process and will change the record status from archive to approved for deletion as part of their assignment. With the approval event group set up, we can now turn our attention to the event group template that will perform the actual deletion. As with all of our event group templates, the pattern of after some criteria is met, wait some period of time, and then perform some action is still true. Our name should consistently reflect this pattern. In this case, since the period is 0 days, we don't explicitly state the period in the title of the event group template, however, you may choose to. Let's look at the triggering criteria in our deletion event. The retention status must be equal to approved. As with the previous trigger, because retention status is a select list, we add it to the trigger metadata card and select the value we want to compare to ensure we're getting the correct ID mFiles has assigned to this value behind the scenes. With our triggering criteria in place, we set the period we want to wait before we perform the action. In this case, we want the action to be executed with no delay, so we'll set the time period to days and the duration to 0. Finally, we will use a direct action to delete and destroy the budget document. With that, we set up the 3 primary objects necessary for AutoRecords to perform the retention. The policy is used to ensure only financial documents are included, and we created a trigger to further limit it to only those financial documents with the document type of budget. The retention category schedules 2 events. The first creates an assignment for our policy owner to approve documents that have a record status of archive budget. That happens 1 year after the status gets set. The next event group is to delete and destroy the documents. This happens after being approved using a trigger comparing the record status equal to approved, and we set the period to 0 days so the deletion occurs without any delay. Once AutoRecords runs, we can see how all this gets linked together. mFiles will automatically create all the associations between the policy, the retention category, the event templates, and ultimately the associated document. It will also schedule events, one to approve the document for deletion and another to delete it. When we look at the document, we can see the records management properties including the associated events. Looking at these events a little closer, the retention event to create an assignment to approve the budget for deletion has been scheduled for January 1st, 2025. Looking at the event to delete the document after the status is approved, we see that there is no date and it says not triggered, meaning that the criteria needed to schedule this event hasn't been met. In other words, our policy owner hasn't changed the status to approved yet. Using the mFiles 360-degree view in this way, it's easy to see how AutoRecords provides a records manager with full visibility into the retention on the system and allows us to confirm that this document is scheduled to be approved for deletion 1 year after it gets archived before ultimately being deleted. As we wrap up this video, we want to encourage you to check out our other sample configuration videos to learn how the power and flexibility of records management in mFiles can help your organization achieve its compliance and records management goals. For more information about records management in mFiles with AutoRecords, please contact mFiles or Team IM. Thank you for watching.